Hey, I didn't see you there! Oh, did you check out the new poster of Muppets Most Wanted? It sure is colorful, isn't it? Alright, now which one are we going to review this time?
New York. Times Square. Broadway.
Alright, everyone. I've given this one a lot of thought, and I really don't know that I'm right to review this one, but I'm gonna give my best shot anyway because I owe it to you. But I do want to make it clear that I really don't think that this movie is... Well, I don't think that it really... I mean, I remember that it... Let's just start from the beginning. In 1981, when The Great Muppet Caper made its premiere in theaters, it was also around the same time that the final episode of The Muppet Show aired on television. While some speculate that the show went off the air because it was cancelled, in reality, it was because Jim Henson was ready to focus on feature films and other projects. The first major project to come out of this new chapter was the 1982 feature film, The Dark Crystal. And while the film was successful, it was still... controversial to say the least. Groundbreaking in its development and technique, some critics viewed it as original, imaginative, and compelling, while others called it more of a watered-down J.R.R. Tolkien kind of story. A lot of parents were also concerned that it had a very dark nature in comparison to the more family-friendly media that Jim Henson had produced in the past, so it didn't fare out well with some audiences. Luckily, it gained more positive reaction over the years and developed a strong fan following, but that's another story. Jim Henson was also focused on other projects at the time, such as working on Sesame Street and developing the new popular TV show Fraggle Rock. But a few years had gone by with nothing Muppet related, so Jim Henson's team and many fans felt it was time to finally bring them back and focus on the more family-friendly genre again. But this time not as a TV show, but rather as another feature film. It's been said that since the early 1970s, Jim Henson always wanted to bring the Muppets to stage, and especially to Broadway. The idea of doing a musical with grand performances, skits, and original puppet characters had great appeal, and it was even approved for production, but ultimately was never fully realized. Cut to years later, with the possibility of producing another feature film, Jim Henson's team decided it was finally time to make their original idea happen. Or at least something similar to it. As a result, the 1984 movie The Muppets Take Manhattan was produced and released in theaters, making the idea of Muppets on Broadway a reality. And I'm sorry! I'm really sorry. I want to enjoy this movie, but it's just... I don't think it holds up as well as it used to. I mean, I'm not saying that this is a bad movie, far from it, but I do think that there are a lot of elements in this movie that worked better 30 years ago, but just don't seem to fare out as well now. And maybe you can blame me for being some dumb white girl who grew up in the northwestern suburbs in the 90s who didn't grow up with this film when it was released. Or maybe there's something I'm missing, but either way, I don't get it. So please just bear in mind that anything that I say from here on out is strictly just a matter of opinion. If you like this movie more than I do, then seriously, more power to you. I'm just one fan giving her opinion on a film from a franchise that I adore, and I feel it's only fair to be as honest as I can with you about it. So let's not waste any time, let's take a look at the next film installment, The Muppets Take Manhattan. So the film starts with the opening credits and some decent helicopter shots of New York City, as we see the director of the film is none other than Frank Oz. For those of you who don't already know, Frank Oz was Jim Henson's closest collaborator and also performed such Muppet characters as Miss Piggy, Fozzie, Bird, Grover, Cookie Monster, and Animal, among many others. He also performed Yoda from the Star Wars films, but that's not really Muppet related. That's just really cool. He too was interested in moving on to working in film and directing, so it only made sense that after Jim directed the last film, Frank was set to direct the next Muppet production.
Together again. Gee, it's good to be together again.
The film opens with Kermit singing one of the movie's signature songs, and at the time this was a very appropriate introduction since the Muppets had taken a 3-year hiatus before the film's release. It was a very fun and light way for the characters to say the gang is back together and it's time to reintroduce the audience to the world of the Muppets once again.
Together again. Gee, it's good to be together again.
So So at first, it looks like the Muppets are performing a traveling show of some kind, so it's possible that this could be a continuation from the first movie, or maybe even something they decided to do after the end of the Muppet Show. Right? Possibly?
Together again. Together again.
Okay, so for some reason the audience is really excited about the number they perform, but why is that exactly? I mean, I know it's the Muppets and all, but we didn't even see the show, so how am I supposed to know if it's any good? Or is it because they're back that the audience is excited? I mean, what exactly is going on?
Well, I really don't know what to say except, well, we're really glad you liked Manhattan Melodies because we all worked so hard to make it the best senior variety show ever.
I'm sorry, what? And then it comes full circle.
It's not often that a frog and a bear and a pig and a chicken and a whatever even get accepted into college. We're all so proud to be graduating now.
Okay, so we find out that this is in fact not a continuation or a sequel of any kind, but instead, the Muppets are graduating from college. Yeah, let that sink in for a second. The Muppets start off this film by graduating from college. Did I miss something? In the first two films, the characters started off the story by reassuring the audience that we're just here to watch a fun story, so naturally it made sense to accept the reality of the movie no matter how obnoxious it was. And, as a fan, I honestly keep expecting them to do the same thing here because, quite frankly, this reality is a little off for me. But, guess what?
Anyway, thank you again. Thank you for everything, guys. Thank you. Yeah.
They never do! We're just supposed to accept that these characters are in their 20s graduating from college. Are you kidding me? You know, I don't need all of my Muppet films to break the fourth wall and reassure me of the story, but in a situation like this, I would think it would be kind of required. You can't just put these characters in a serious atmosphere like that and expect everyone to believe it. I know it's the Muppets, but they can't get away with everything. I mean, if I told you today that you were supposed to accept the Muppet characters we know and love as 20-something college students, would you be able to take that seriously? Haha, nope. Alright, so if you're able to buy the college graduate logic, Kermit gets a suggestion from one of the oldest looking college students.
Kermit! Next time we'll see you on Broadway!
Yeah, sure.
And with the further encouragement of his friends, they decide to take their Manhattan Melodies musical to New York and get it produced on Broadway. And apparently it doesn't take them long to find a buyer.
Well, it's all about life in the big city.
Yeah.
Big city, huh?
It's more like songs and dances.
Songs and dances. That might be interesting.
No offense guys, but that sounds like the most generic musical I've ever heard of in my entire life. I don't know, maybe that was kind of the point, but this really sounds like every other standard musical that was produced in the past.
I'd be proud to produce your show. Fellas, you're gonna be on Broadway.
Hey, Kermit, we did it!
Guys, no, it doesn't work like that. In fact, how is it that this guy wants to produce your musical? I'm sure he's heard dozens of plots and ideas just like this one. This is crazy! I mean, come on guys, this has gotta be a scam or something! And it turns out that's exactly what this is. Through a confusing confrontation, we discover that this producer person is really just a scam artist who never wanted to produce their show. He just wanted their money.
Kermit, he never wanted our show. He just wanted our money.
Yeah, thank you, Captain Obvious. So it's back to the streets for our heroes, and it's up to an 80s montage sequence to try to help them sell the show.
You can't take no for an answer. You can't take no. You can't take no for an answer. No, 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 no. You can't take no for an answer. No, no, no. No, 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 no. No, 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 no.
And after several months, we see they've discovered the hard way that doing something so ambitious is a lot tougher than they thought it would be.
This is turning out to be a little tougher than I thought.
Again, thank you, Captain Obvious. Realizing how much they're down on their luck, they stop at a restaurant to try to figure out what to do next.
I wonder if Kermit really meant it. I mean, about failing.
Well, those producers looked at us like we were from outer space.
Scooter, please don't foreshadow for another future disappointing film. While inside, they meet Rizzo, who finally has a defining character.
Do you think I'm doing this as a hobby, huh? Do you? You want to know what I make around here? Huh? Nothing. Nothing. I live on tips.
The owner of the restaurant named Pete, who has some helpful advice.
Big city. Live, work, huh? But not city open. Only peoples. Peoples is peoples. No, it's buildings. It's tomatoes, huh? It's peoples. It's dancing. It's music. It's potatoes. So, peoples is peoples.
Huh? And they also come across...
Sorry I'm late, Pop.
Audrey Hepburn's stand-in? No, I kid. This is Juliana Donald, playing Pete's daughter, Jenny, an aspiring fashion designer. She eventually befriends Kermit and decides to help him on his quest to produce his musical, while the rest of the Muppets decide it's time to find jobs elsewhere since they've completely run out of funds. Deciding to go their separate ways, they say their final goodbyes to each other.
Kermit, we'll all write to you and let you know where we are.
Yeah, and Kermit, we still believe in the show.
Yeah.
Saying goodbye, going away.
Oh no. No, not this song! Alright, for as many problems as this film might have, it still has a lot of things going for it, and this song is probably one of the biggest highlights. For all the emotionally heartfelt songs the Muppet franchise has ever produced, this is by far the saddest. And it's not only sad, it's depressing.
Saying goodbye, why is it sad? Makes us remember the good times we've had.
I remember when I had to say goodbye to my friends too. It was so sad! That really is amazing compositional writing if you're able to get emotional and teary-eyed for a couple of talking socks. Not the first time it's happened, but I think for those of us who grew up with the song, it kind of stuck with us and was probably thought of fondly whenever we had to part with someone close.
Wanna cry, saying goodbye.
It's time for saying goodbye.
With his friends gone, Kermit stays behind and vows to get the show on Broadway no matter what.
The show's not dead as long as I believe in it. And we're all going to be on Broadway. I'm still here and I'm staying. You hear that, New York? I'm staying here. The frog is staying.
And a good majority of the film pretty much goes like this. Kermit gets a job at Pete's, Jenny helps him in a series of unsuccessful attempts to get the attention of more Broadway producers, Miss Piggy comes back and stalks Kermit for a while, for some reason. Kermit finally finds someone who's interested in producing the show, and his friends are all called back from their seemingly miserable jobs to take part in making the show happen. Oh yeah, and Kermit gets hit by a car and gets a horrible case of amnesia. Aha! You didn't see that one coming, did you? Yes, the Muppets have never been strangers to the more adult plot devices, have they? Along with hostages, robbery, a near-death experience, and even the supposed shotgun wedding. Yeah, we'll get to that later. You have to appreciate that these Muppet films were still, for the most part, striving for edgier themes so that the film didn't have too much of a childish atmosphere. Although I still think that this film went in more of a kid-friendly direction as opposed to the last two films that were more family-friendly. Alright, I've probably harped on this movie enough, so let's go ahead and talk about the things that I do like. Well, first of all, I do like that this movie has more of a defined character arc than the last films. A lot of characters, especially Kermit, go through several emotional highs and lows in this story, and it's really interesting to see the emotional journey they go through throughout the film. And especially when Kermit gets amnesia, that's when things really get interesting. Even if it is a little cheesy. Second, and I know I talked about this a lot in the last reviews, but the puppetry gets even more impressive in this film, and you can really see it shine in two specific scenes. The first involves Rizzo and some more rat waiters partaking in a rat scat. You heard right, a rat scat, where they actually cook food in real time. The timing of the music and the staging of the puppetry just meld together perfectly. And that's real pancake batter on the stove and real butter under that rat's foot. Ew, that's gross. By the way, I have to ask, how does Pete afford his payroll with all these employees and rats? Those must be some of the most expensive pancakes ever served in New York.
It's no coffee shop, it's zoo.
The other scene that has incredible puppetry technique is... You know, do I even need to go into detail about who the Muppet Babies are? Don't try to deny it. You know you watch them. They took over your Saturday mornings with their marketable cuteness and creatively adventurous atmosphere. And you sat through every single wonderful minute of it. You know, it's interesting, because the cartoon only aired 4 months after the film's release, so of course it's unlikely that this sequence was such a big hit that they were able to commission all those episodes so quickly. And, wouldn't you know it, the cartoon was in fact planned well before the movie's release, probably because the marketing team knew this was going to be beyond profitable. And it turns out they were 100% right. And who can blame them? These were the characters we all loved, but as infants. What could be more cute than that? When I was a kid growing up in the 90s, I actually saw the cartoon before I watched Muppets Take Manhattan. So when I did finally see the movie, I was like, whoa, wait a minute, there's live action Muppet Babies too? How come no one ever told me this? Even if you have problems with other parts of the film, this scene alone is still worth the price of admission. Not only is the song catchy and adorable, but the puppets are captured so well that you're often wondering how in the world they made all these shots happen. It was one of the most complicated scenes to shoot, and the puppeteers didn't fail to impress the audience once again. And when you think about it, the scene is not only adorable, it came right out of nowhere and had nothing to do with the story, but we still loved every single minute of those singing marketable babies. Muppet Babies. It's kind of ironic because there are several scenes in this movie that lend absolutely nothing to the plot, but those are actually some of the most memorable parts of the film. Even some moments where Miss Piggy is pointlessly jealous and even aggressive are quite often some of the funniest scenes in the movie. She even has a completely random scene with Joan Rivers that gets a couple of laughs. Is that a funny scene? I don't know. Most fans seem to think so. And speaking of celebrities, once again this Muppet film doesn't shy away from including some notable cameos. And this time they go back to the quick appearances of the first film, including Art Carney, James Coco, Dabney Coleman, Gregory Hines, Linda Loveland, Liza Minnelli, Brooke Shields, Frances Bergen, John Landis, and even Elliot Gould makes a cameo. Again. For some reason. Two interesting notes on the cameos: Vincent Sardi of the infamous Sardi's Restaurant actually appeared as himself, and Gates McCabe makes an appearance as a secretary, and she would later go on to do choreography for Labyrinth, as well as play Beverly Crusher on Star Trek: The Next Generation. And of course, it wouldn't be one of the original Muppet films without some sort of Sesame Street cameo. So tell me, which character did they get to appear in this one? Ah! They got the whole entire cast, apparently! Okay, this part is a real piece of work. Arguably the most famous scene in the movie, we finally get to see what the musical they've been building up to this whole time is all about. But before we talk about the musical itself, let's first address the music of the film. All of the songs in this movie were written by Jeff Moss, who, like Joe Raposo, was a composer and lyricist for Sesame Street, having written popular songs like and
Yes, I love trash.
And one of my personal favorites,
Rubber Ducky, you're the one. You make bath time lots of fun.
His work earned him 15 Emmy Awards over the years, and working on the music for Muppets Take Manhattan got him an Academy Award nomination as well. He had a very whimsical way of writing his music, and you can definitely hear it in the songs that shape the movie's story, even if they're not always coherent. That and Ralph Burns, a Tony Award-winning music composer of musicals like Fosse and Thoroughly Modern Millie, assisted in helping write the score of the film with Moss. His influence from several musicals really helped the movie grab that catchy, old-school Broadway feel that made the music as memorable as it is. But just because the music is good, that doesn't mean that the musical isn't off-putting. As it finally kicks off, and I don't think I'm giving much away here, the Muppets have finally made it to opening night, the seats are sold out, and it's sad to say that this is where things really start to get weird. Because just as the curtain is about to go up, this suddenly happens.
No, they cannot watch the show from backstage. more frogs and dogs and bears and chickens and whatever. You're not gonna watch the show. You're gonna be in the show. Come on, everybody.
Of course! It doesn't matter that you don't know the music or the choreography. Through the magic of Broadway, you'll just whimsically know what to do. That makes sense. And the musical begins with their shiny costumes and over-the-top sets. The extra actors unbelievably already know what to do. And pretty much right off the bat, the story of the musical goes straight into a wedding scene between Kermit and Miss Piggy. But you know, it's weird because once everyone is inside the church, you don't see the audience anymore. So how are they supposed to know what's going on? Is this still the musical? Did we enter a different scene? It's very confusing. But in 1984, along with the Muppet Babies, this was the scene that everybody was raving about. The frog and the pig are finally tying the knot, the press cried out. Or are they? Or aren't they? Yes, there's been a lot of questions as to whether Kermit and Miss Piggy were in fact married after this scene. Were they just actors in a movie playing the parts of a married couple? Or because that was a real priest? No, seriously, that guy is a real priest that Frank Oz hired. Are they in fact together now? It's never been entirely clear, but that just made the hype even bigger. In interviews, Kermit always denied that they were married, while Miss Piggy always said that they were. People tried asking Jim Henson himself about the details, but he was amusingly never clear about it either. The arguments and facts between the characters have changed over time, but there's no denying that this wedding still left a bit of a frustrating, but also humorously open-ended possibility for these two characters. So in a nutshell, that is The Muppets Take Manhattan. Can you see why I'm a little lost on this one? The movie was originally meant to be written as a parody of those old putting on a show musicals from the previous decades, and while it definitely feels like one of those musicals, I never really got the sense that this was a satire or a parody. There's a lot of inconsistency, it tends to be really out of character, it has a few too many unrealistic scenarios, and in the end, the film takes itself a little too seriously. Therefore, it's a little difficult to enjoy. It doesn't seem to have a lot of popularity with the adult crowd nowadays, but I do find that a lot of people still enjoy watching it either because it's a guilty pleasure or because it's very nostalgic for them. And that goes back to my point that a lot of people seem to remember liking this movie more when they were younger, so I definitely think it's a film that's more enjoyable for children. Now, to the movie's credit, it does convey some tough but necessary life lessons that are important for kids to hear. They really do get across that when you have an ambitious dream, it's not always going to be easy to make it come true, especially if you're going into something like show business. There will be obstacles. There will be people who will try to use you. There will be tough decisions you have to make. But if you work hard, stay true to yourself and persevere, then one day you'll be rewarded for it. They tried to do something different with this film, but sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. After the movie's release, even Frank Oz himself agreed with the negative criticism he got, so I think it's safe to say that this movie does have a lot of problems. Muppets, I love you, but I'm sorry to say this is not your best work. Then again, the best is still to come. And I do apologize if this review turned you off from the film in any way, but I can promise you that the things in the movie that are good are still really good. So I recommend you check out this interesting case of a Muppet movie, if for no other reason than to get a good laugh, watch some fun, choreographed musical numbers, and to enjoy a glorious live-action stint of those adorable Muppet Babies.
Together again. Together again.
Well guys, thank you so much for watching the review, and be sure to check out The Muppets Take Manhattan to see a great piece of Muppet nostalgia. Have a fun, safe, and happy Halloween, and I'll see you next month for the next review.
Start this up. Gotta feel the love shining like the sun.